2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bart Winkler in for Zach Gelb today. It is great to be with you in normal human hours. If you haven't heard, you can catch me 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time on many of these fine affiliates on CBS Sports Radio, on Sirius XM 158, on the Odyssey app. Free to listen, free to download. So check us out all day long, myself included, but also Zach, who I believe will be back in tomorrow. If not, well, hey, that's why you got to cherish every moment that you have with everyone, really, including Zach. You never know if they're going to be there the next day. Just a very wise thing that I'm going to start the show with today. The Toronto Raptors did not know how long Pascal Siakam was going to be there. And the answer is not any longer. We are going to start with an NBA trade. I don't know how much we'll actually talk about said NBA trade, as it's another trade involving the Raptors and a team that is maybe fighting to be what I think is that fourth spot in the East. You've got the Bucks, you've got the Celtics, you've got the Sixers, who have been very impressive. I think those three in some order will be the top three. The Celtics may go through a couple of bumps. The Bucks have gone through a couple of bumps. The Sixers are going to still miss Embiid in games on the road against good teams, and he might not play enough to be the MVP, but he'll play like an MVP, so it's all going to work out perfectly for them. But those are the top 3 teams. And what it looked like was, all right, 2 versus 3 is going to play each other, and that's going to be a battle. And then number 1, after they get past the 8th seed, although I know it didn't happen last year, is going to play the 4th best team and essentially have an easier path. But now you have the Knicks really coming together. Shaky game the other night, but they're really coming together. And now you have the Pacers, who got to the championship in the in-season tournament, which looked like it was going to propel them to some really big regular season games. And, oh, look, it's kind of like a playoff atmosphere early on in the season. And then they lost a bunch of games, but have kind of figured things back out again. Again, it's a long season in the NBA. I don't think any sport has a worse time when it comes to fans and media and maybe even players themselves of understanding that there are 82 of these things. Even in the NFL, if you start 2-5, there's a handful of teams that in week 8, week 9 this year did not look good. And how are they going to make the playoffs? But there was still half a season left, and they do. In baseball, if you struggle in May, June, there's still 3-4 months left. In basketball, you lose a game on January 15th, and it's on national television. I mean, the right people are going to be saying that your season's over. So there's still a long way to go here. The trade sends Pascal Siakam to the Pacers. Bruce Brown, who was just in Denver the other night getting his ring because he signed a deal with the Pacers, they just shipped him right out of there. So now he's going to Toronto. Jordan Nwora is going to Toronto as well. He won a title with the Bucks and has played sporadically. 3 first-round picks are going back from the Pacers to the Raptors, and then New Orleans getting in the mix, and Kira Lewis is going to Toronto as well. So Toronto is starting this rebuilding project. I think this is more obviously about the first-round picks than it is either of the players, but Toronto's starting a rebuilding project, and Indiana is thinking, we've got Halliburton here. We like Sabonis. We like some of these guys. Sabonis is gone, obviously. What I meant by that was Turner. We've got these guys. Sometimes I say wrong things to quiz the audience to make sure that you're understanding and to make you feel smarter. It's one of the charms about me. But we've got a good young talent here, a good young group of guys, and we want to make sure that, we don't waste it. And maybe the expectations have hit a little early, so we're going to go ahead and accelerate that a little bit. I think for Toronto, what's interesting with Toronto is this is a franchise that, you say it's okay if you're a fan. And there's no doubt that Toronto Raptors fans would never, not have the joy of winning the championship when they did a few years ago. They got Kawhi Leonard. They were struggling to win with DeRozan, so they trade him out. They get Kawhi Leonard there. They win in 2018, 2019, and then obviously Kawhi leaves, and the whole thing was like a flash in the pan. The whole thing was a flash in the pan. They had some years where they were building. They make the trade. They win the championship, and since then it's been 2 playoff appearances and just 1 series win. And it's almost like, if you look back in history, it's almost like it never happened. Which, and I'm not trying to belittle it in any way. It's just, it's a different and weird feeling. A lot of teams in sports, they'll go through the grind. I think why everybody's so poetic about Michael Jordan for a handful of reasons isn't just that he won and then won and then won. It's that they went through 5, 6, 7 years of battling through the East and those bad boy Pistons to finally get over the hump. We like to see teams go through an obstacle a little bit. We don't like to see teams just buy a title and be the Marlins of both times they won. We don't like to see that. We don't like to see even the Kansas City Royals. Where did that come from? How did that happen? It's we want to see these dynasties as much as we say we don't. We do. And I'm just thinking historically, 20, 30 years from now, when you look at, who won this, who won that, or you're playing trivia, the Toronto Raptors winning that NBA championship is going to stump you a little bit. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, I guess we did win the title there, or I guess they did win the title there. It's just going to be a little different and a little interesting. So very much over is this title opportunity that Toronto had. They were close, made the trade, and then slowly but surely guys either left, and then now they've just siphoned everybody off here before the trade deadline. What this is also going to do is once we get to the trade deadline, there will be less trades. And so at the trade deadline, we're going to say, oh, this trade deadline sucks. But some of the trades have already happened. So we're like all crazy about it now. And then we're going to be bummed when the trade deadline comes and things don't happen as much. So NBA trade this afternoon, Pascal Siakam from Toronto to the Pacers, essentially for a bunch of picks. And just to remind everybody, in case you didn't know, Domantas Sabonis is on the Kings. That was just a test. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. If you'd like to chime in throughout the show today, a lot of football to get to. We're going to take a look at some of these teams and who's got the pressure, who needs to win this weekend, because there are a lot of teams that are kind of in a good spot. And for fan bases of those teams, I would say enjoy it. There is a completely different experience between being in the playoffs when, like, you have to win and being in the playoffs when you don't. Some of these teams, like I'm thinking of the Texans and the Packers, like they are in a really good spot right now because they were not expected to be here. So enjoy it, because what's going to happen is if you do lose this weekend or whenever, next year then the offseason is going to say, all right, look at this Texans team. They got the second year of C.J. Stroud, the second year of this coach. There's going to be expectations to win the South again, and then that's going to be the bare minimum. You're going to have expectations. The Packers now, yeah, the Lions are good in the North, but Jordan Love looks to be the third in a line of quarterback succession. Now there's going to be pressure. Even though it's essentially going to be a lot of the same squad as you have right now, you're still in the period of time where there's not a lot of pressure. So enjoy it. Enjoy this period, because the playoffs are inevitably more fun when you have no pressure. Maybe like the Royals or some of these Marlins teams. It's just more fun when you don't have a lot of pressure and everything is like you're pinching yourself along the way. Because if you have expectations, and I'm just speaking as a fan, and I'm sure it's to this degree a little bit in the locker rooms, but when you have expectations, at some point, it doesn't become like about the winning. It becomes about, we can't lose. We can't lose. We can't lose this series to the 8th-seeded Miami Heat. We can't lose this game to the visiting Green Bay Packers. We're the Dallas Cowboys. It becomes about you can't lose more than it becomes about not being able to win. And I think when you're in the position where there's not a lot of pressure, you can play more free. You can play more like yourself, and you can actually have a nice run to a championship. So I think there's more teams with less pressure this weekend, including some teams that have already won the past weekend. So I think it should make for a real interesting kind of playoffs. Because when you get a bunch of teams coming in that are like uptight and not sure and kind of playing scared and know that the expectations are so heavy, the games kind of get tighter and the decisions get more conservative. So I think we could open ourselves up for some really good games. I know a lot of the point spreads are leading us to think there's going to be blowouts here and blowouts there, but I think we should be in line for some good football this weekend. We're also trying to figure out who is going where in terms of the head coaching carousel, which kind of cooled down. Jerod Mayo was announced today, officially introduced for New England. So that one was quickly off the books. They didn't even want to mess with that. They had decided that a year ago. And really this whole time that we were wondering about Belichick's future, the Patriots and Robert Kraft knew that Jerod Mayo was going to be the next guy. So as we were thinking from the outside looking in, well, what does Kraft want to do with Belichick? It wasn't just what does he want to do with Belichick? It was when does he want to go to Mayo? He knew the next thing that he was going to do. So when did he find it appropriate to go to the next thing? And there's been some reporting this week that the relationship was even more rocky than we would have thought, which I don't think surprises anybody. You've got two guys with those kind of egos in those positions for multiple decades. And then there's the whole Tom Brady aspect of it, where Belichick might have thought one thing of him and maybe believes what is told to him, Robert Kraft from Belichick, and then Tom Brady goes and instantly wins a Super Bowl. I think that was, without saying, the worst thing that could have happened for New England. Because then there's more pressure to develop quarterbacks, and Mac Jones didn't look like he was ever going to be the guy. And then Bailey Zappi comes in on a primetime game and throws a couple touchdowns, and then you're trying to make parallels to Bledsoe and Brady all over again. Like, you can just do what you did again without any sort of intention. You can't, unless you're the Packers, Favre, Rodgers, Love. But the Patriots were trying to do that as well, and it wasn't able to work. So they've still got to get over that. And I think that Belichick, who reportedly interviewed with the Falcons last night, and Jim Harbaugh has appeared to interview with them too. I think for Belichick's spot, I feel like the Cowboys is where he should go. I feel like the Dallas Cowboys is the job that would be best for him. Even though you think right away, Jerry Jones, Bill Belichick, I just talked about the ego of Bob Kraft and the ego of Bill Belichick. I think it's different with Jerry Jones. I think you're looking at two guys who are toward the end of their career that have a narrative that is being written about them that they don't prefer. With Jerry Jones, you have a guy who won a bunch of championships in the 90s as the owner, general manager, executive vice president, director of traveling. I think he's like the third PR guy also. I think he might even be the one in the mailrooms. He does everything with that franchise. If not him, one of his kids. So you've got Jerry Jones, who has these titles and wants to be known as a champion. And maybe that's one of the reasons why he celebrated Jimmy Johnson as late as he did, to just, hey, remember us guys? We did this. Remember when we won? Yeah, we do. That was a long time ago. So Jerry Jones, and McCarthy hasn't been fired yet. And the longer he goes without being fired, maybe he doesn't get fired. But I do think, like, with some of these jobs that are up in the air, the Eagles we'll talk about, the Cowboys, you have such a good free agent class right now of coaches that you have to at least explore that opportunity. You have to at least think about it. You've got Bill Belichick out there. You've got Jim Harbaugh out there who looks like he is NFL bound. All of a sudden, you got Pete Carroll out there. You have Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, in many other coaching cycles, would be the surefire top candidate. But now there's all these other Hall of Fame coaches floating around. And you could be a team that says, no, I want a younger guy. I want one of these coordinators, like a Ben Johnson in Detroit. I want a guy who's going to come in, and I've seen these young coaches, and I want somebody with a fiery attitude. I don't want one of these older guys. I don't want the, previous generation of football, even though Pete Carroll, I think, like if you did a body age test on the 32 coaches, might be a top 5 youngest coach. Guy's so energetic and youthful. Doesn't seem like that is ever going to slow down with him. But if you're one of these teams, you got to at least consider the possibility. And why I think Belichick is a good match for the Cowboys, at least from his perspective, is Bill Belichick had a great career with New England. And then Tom Brady left, and Tom Brady won a Super Bowl, and then Belichick had 4 years. He made the playoffs once, but clearly did not make a Super Bowl or have good postseason success. So when Tom Brady steps away, everyone celebrates Tom Brady. When Bill Belichick is no longer with the Patriots, what do people do? They talk about Tom Brady and how Belichick after Brady wasn't the same guy. So Jerry Jones wants to change his narrative. Bill Belichick wants to change his narrative. If Bill goes to Dallas, it's two guys who can change their narrative, two guys who can use each other's history in football to maybe benefit each other. Two guys who I think at this point in their career both won a championship so bad that they would be willing to give a little more than they would to the average person. And for Belichick's part in all this, I think it's a win-win. Because if Bill Belichick goes to Dallas, what's going to happen if he wins? If Bill Belichick goes to Dallas and wins, what's going to happen? Jerry Jones could not win for 25 years. He couldn't get to a championship for 30 years. And then he hires, finally, Bill Belichick, the right coach, and that's what it took. It took the right coach with this organization that gets all the attention but can never get back to a championship round. It took the right coach. Belichick saved the Cowboys. If Bill Belichick goes to Dallas and loses, then what's going to be the narrative? It's not going to be anti-Bill. It's going to be Jerry Jones' operation is such a mess that not even the great Bill Belichick could go there and save it. So I think if I'm Bill, I look towards Dallas. Atlanta, I don't, like, what is the interview with Atlanta? Did you watch the Super Bowl where I came back to beat you? Why are you, like, why am I even interviewing? You should either give me this job or not give me this job. If you want to meet me and have a dinner with me and just, like, you know, comp a meal, that's one thing, but what is there to interview? And also Jim Harbaugh. He's still the coach at Michigan, right? He's just taking these other interviews. This is a very unique opportunity for some of these people because you can have a job and still interview. Everybody else that wants to do a job interview around here, and by around here I mean the world, has to, like, fake sick or take a day off or do it after hours or do it so secretly because you can't have your employer find out. Jim's just out there taking interviews. What's Michigan going to do? Fire him? He won him a championship for the first time in forever. So very interesting landscape right now. I still expect some changes. The Eagles are a team that they have to. They have to fire Sirianni. The Eagles are a team that has to fire Sirianni. I, like, haven't checked any internet in 15 minutes. I'm so nervous that I'm missing something. That's how, like, fresh I think that they have to do it. So we'll talk more about that. It does seem like some of these teams that haven't made changes at least should consider making changes with what's available and also the way that their seasons have ended. So we'll keep that discussion going. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I'm Bart Winkler, in for Zach today, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
CBS Sports Radio, I'm Bart Winkler in for Zach Gelb today. If you are a Bart Winkler diehard, sorry. You also know that this means I will not be doing the show tonight. David Shepard will have us covered between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern time, and I should be back there Thursday night. Have to adjust the sleep schedule a little bit, but that's all right, to come and hang out with Mike Samter and Stu Kovacs. Boys, we're watching that Eagles game the other night while the show's going on, and I thought that the Eagles were going to win just because I couldn't believe what I actually saw was happening. This was a team that was 10-1. And I know there was a lot of discussion throughout the year, like, yeah, they're 10-1, but this isn't really a 10-1 team. And I'm like, but they are. They're winning. They know how to win. I thought that Jalen Hurts was playing very well. Maybe that was a fantasy football induced problem because I had leagues where I had A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, and I was winning a lot. So maybe I'm just like, oh, my fantasy numbers are good. The team must be good. But then they lost a bunch of games, and it never seemed to get figured out. And as you look back and see some of the stuff with Nick Sirianni, like, you know, making fun of Chiefs fans or the stuff he was doing as he was leaving the tunnel or the game, and just how much he was talking the talk before he walked the walk. Maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise, but when I saw that game and I saw how bad that game was, I'm still stunned. What happened with the Eagles the other night?
I mean, me too. I'm more the lead up the whole season, how they just constantly just seem to just fall and fall and fall. And there was like no immediate explanation. Like, the defense is good. The wide receivers are good. Jalen Hurts is good. Their offensive line is good. There was no, like, explanation. There wasn't, like, an injury. There wasn't, you couldn't pinpoint what it was that was causing these issues. There was locker room issues, leadership issues, coaching issues. Nobody really knew. But the way they came out in that playoff game, and Troy Aikman just ripped them all game long, it felt like they didn't want to be there. It felt like they didn't want to get off that bus. It felt like they were just waiting for the season to be over. And that is such a bad look. I'm not the kind of guy whoever gets on and reactionary, well, you look so bad in the playoffs, you have to fire Nick Sirianni. I'm not that kind of guy, right? I'm a believer, keep Mike McCarthy, unless there's like something seriously wrong. But the way they looked the rest of that season, the way they looked in that game, how disinterested, how just unenergetic and unprepared they were, I don't think that it's Nick Sirianni's fault, but something has to change, and the easiest thing to change is the coach. So while I don't think it's his fault per se, I do think that they probably have to let him go just to make some sort of change, because the way they looked, that wasn't a team that wanted to play football.
You look in the second half, and there was a drive where the Eagles were backed up. They eventually were sacked, or not sacked, there was a penalty, but it was a safety. And a play before that, one or two plays before that, Kenneth Gainwell's running around back there, and Hurts has just got, he's got no interest in blocking and picking up a block for him, and it ended up being a big loss. But I thought even before that, the Eagles did not come out and play like the Eagles. And it was very interesting to start. You know how much discussion there's been about the tush push, which I know that that's not like the greatest name, but I do prefer it over brotherly shove. While I do think it is clever, I just don't want to call it that. Just like Twitter, I'm not calling it X. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's never going to be X. It's never going to be a repost. It's always a retweet.
You can't have it's a letter. It's a letter. And I'm not going to pretend. I'm not playing along with some guy's sick infatuation over a letter. He's got a fetish over a letter, and we're just all supposed to call it X now?
And it's a letter that has like kind of a dubious history. It's a letter that kind of represents, like, when you see X's on stuff, you think of, like, videos that you shouldn't be watching with your family around or something like that. It's a weird letter to have. If it was Q, then maybe it would be a little bit less weird. But
Q's not good right now either.
That's it. That's a good point. I'm sorry. Bad example on that one.
Yeah, can't call it Q either. Yeah, it's like I don't know where people land on this. I feel like there's, if you're an offensive football, if you're an offensive lineman in football and you're still picking the number 69, it's like, okay, guy, that was funny in 8th grade, but let's
still a little bit funny.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it's funnier than whatever he's got going on with X. So I know some want to call it X. I know it benefits some to call it X. I ain't calling it X. Okay, not happening. Twitter. Anyway, I said that because I don't remember why. I just think I had that burning in the back of my head that at some point I need to rail against calling it X. But I want to go back to the beginning of this football game. Oh, the brotherly shove. I want to go back to the beginning of this football game. Monday night, when we should have known it was over. So the Eagles get the ball. They are down 3-0 because Tampa had the ball first. So the Eagles get the football. They have the ball at their 25-yard line. Then they end up getting a first down. They're at the 36. Get a couple yards. They're at the 40. Get a couple yards. They're at their own 44-yard line. Early in the game, yeah. But it's 3rd and 2. It's 3rd and 2, and they're at their own 44-yard line. Do they have a play that they can get a guaranteed 2 yards on every time? And if they don't get a guaranteed 2 yards on, they get a guaranteed 1 yard on, which then it'd be a 4th and 1, and they could get another guaranteed yard. Do they have that play? Does any team have that play? Yes. Obviously, I already used the punchline before the setup. The play is the tush push. The Eagles have a 4th and 2 at the 44. This is a reasonable spot. All right, we're not backed up at the 10 here. We're not backed up at the 15. This is the 44-yard line. Still on the wrong side of the 50, but you're the Eagles. You've perfected this play. No one else can do this play like you. The Giants do it one time and 2 guys get hurt. You can do this play. Instead, they go into shotgun, and it's an incomplete pass. So maybe Jalen Hurts is hurt more than we think. Maybe the Eagles just didn't want to do it anymore. Maybe they forgot to do it. Maybe they thought, hey, we actually really like this play, but if we do it in a big spot in the playoffs in prime time, then the NFL, because the NFL hasn't talked about it in a little bit. Remember, people are like, oh, we might ban the tush push, but we haven't done it in a while, so now they're not going to remember to ban it. So let's not give them a reason to do it, and then we can still do it next year. Yeah, that's what we'll do. The aversion to doing it, I think from the jump, it was like, okay, something's wrong here. The Eagles aren't acting like the Eagles. And I think that was the biggest thing you saw in that game was the Eagles just weren't acting like the Eagles. They weren't, and I know A.J. Brown was out, but they weren't scoring with proficiency. They weren't leading the ball down the field. Jalen Hurts, I think, was taking sacks and throwing the ball away in other situations where he would have tried to extend the play, perhaps. So I thought that was weird. Then the next drive, they were backed up a little bit, but they were in a 3rd and 2 again. In a 3rd and 2 again, 3rd and 3, and they went in shotgun again. They have a play that can get them these yards, and they purposely, multiple times, chose not to do it. So I just don't understand from the start what the intention was. It did seem like, all right, let's just finish this season. We stink. Let's get out of here. But you're in the playoffs. You're a good football team. You won 11 games. You won more games than the team who you're playing. Yeah, they came at the end of the year, the losses did, but I don't understand how you can just give up completely like that. It looks so destined for a Super Bowl rematch for so long this season, and the Chiefs have had their struggles, but they've been working through it the best they can. They at least are trying to work through it. They at least want to work through it. The Eagles just seem like they don't want to work through it. So I don't know what's going on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball was a whole nother story, and I really want to, if you ever remember this game or talk about this game, Eagles-Buccaneers, whether you're a fan of either or the NFL, if it ever comes up, try not to fall into the trap of saying that the Eagles missed a lot of tackles, because they didn't. Missing tackles means you try to tackle someone, and the Eagles so many times did not. I mean, they basically put their hands up and let guys run all over the field. Some of those touchdowns were very egregious, should not have happened. It was some of the worst defense that you'll see in football, certainly the worst defense that you're going to see all playoffs, and I'm including whatever happened in Dallas. I mean, there was no effort here for the Eagles. So I think that, unfortunately, yeah, he's had success, and this was a winning season, and they were just in the Super Bowl. But what I liken this to is, as a Packer fan, I liken this back to 2014. The Packers' 2014 season, they were in control of an NFC Championship game against Seattle. They were up 16-0, and then somehow, some way, Seattle came back. And it was just one of those results where it's like, whatever happened in this game, that game is gonna stay with you for a long time. You're not going to be able to get over that game. And so we've seen it in other situations since then where the Packers never did get over that game. And they eventually fired McCarthy and maybe should have fired him sooner. The Seattle Seahawks, did they ever get over that 4th down in the Super Bowl where they threw, when they threw it to Malcolm Butler? Did they ever get over that play? Did they ever get over that? They didn't. Eventually, Pete Carroll, they moved on, and Pete Carroll did better, but they had to trade Russell Wilson. You have to do something. You have to do something. You can't get over it until you get rid of someone, or just like you got to wash the sheets here. The Falcons, when they blew that lead, they have not gotten over that yet. You have to do something. So I think this loss was so bad for Philly, they got to do whatever they can to get rid of the stink of this loss. And I'm talking fire the coach, trade some dudes, get rid of Patricia. I don't know what that was. Go full-time back to Kelly Green just to, tell fans, hey, don't remember that at all. We're a different team now. New uniforms. You got to do whatever you can. And I just don't know. I don't know how you can be led by a guy for 2 months, this be the final result. I think that things are going to get better in the offseason. So, I don't know. The longer Mike McCarthy stays with Dallas, it seems like he might save his job. I still kind of believe that he has been fired, or at least Jerry Jones sent the message. Mike's just not seen his phone since Monday. But I don't know. I'd be more surprised if Sirianni at this point survived the week than Mike McCarthy. 855-212-4227. It is a busy day. It's been a busy week. It's a busy month. Thankfully, we have updates to keep you informed. Here's one of them with Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. The Golden State Warriors announced a few moments ago that assistant coach Dejan Milojevic passed away after suffering a heart attack at a private team dinner last night. He was just 46 years old. Tonight's game between the Warriors and Jazz in Utah had already been postponed. The Pacers are currently 6th in the East, tied with the Knicks, and like New York, picked up a major player from Toronto, reportedly acquiring Pascal Siakam. Going back to the Raptors are Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks, 2 of them in this year's draft. Toronto also gets Kyra Lewis from the Pelicans. Now, Siakam is an unrestricted free agent at season's end. It's a new day in Foxborough with a new man in charge as Gerard Mayo was officially introduced as the Patriots' new coach. Alabama worked quickly to replace the retired Nick Saban. Now they need to fill a big void on defense with freshman safety Caleb Downs entering the transfer portal. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, the JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
CBS Sports Radio. I am Bart Winkler. Great to be with you here on this Wednesday afternoon. In for Zach Gelb today. He should be back in his chair tomorrow. It is time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us, the pros, a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Just tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or Zach Gelb. You can also tweet me at Bart Winkler Show. Do tweet Zach Gelb, though, too. It's nice on a day off to then get a bunch of tweets about the show that you have nothing to do with that day. So tweet your questions at all of them. At CBS Sports Radio, at Zach Gelb, at Bart Winkler Show. Use the hashtag AskThePros and be listening later in the show when we may answer your question. If it's a good one, we'll pick the best. Thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. The Clippers are getting made fun of again. And, you know, the Clippers have done a nice job. The Clippers were long the team that was just, why do they exist? They have always been the second fiddle in Los Angeles. They have played in the same arena as the Lakers, so really it feels like they're renting space from them. Even when they both play a game together, it seems like somehow the Lakers get an extra home game, no matter where the tickets are sold. It's just been bad. It's just been, nobody ever wore growing up. Nobody ever wore anything Clippers. It was the team that was bad all the time. They've done a nice job of shedding that image. Now their image is the team that is like really good, and you forget about them in a more indifferent way. It's like they're when the teams are really, really good, they're on top of mind. When they're really, really bad, they are too, because they get made fun of. Like right now, Detroit, Washington, the Spurs all playing bad. The Pistons secretly are playing good. They just keep losing. But when I watch them, it's like, wow, this is a decent team. But the Clippers are now that team that like, oh, they'll get a playoff spot and then do what with it? Not much. And then this year could be different. But then somebody's going to get hurt, or they're going to lose in a weird way, and it's just going to go back to whatever. But they are trying to change that. So I appreciate Steve Ballmer and the whole Clippers organization for still trying to run from this preconceived notion of what people had of the Clippers. And now they announced that they are, as part of their new arena, because that's another thing, that's another part of this, they are leaving Crypto.com, formerly Staples. Again, if I'm still going to call it Twitter, I'm still going to call it Staples. They're leaving that arena. They're going to be in a new arena next year, the Intuit Dome. And on Tuesday, it was announced they're going to host the All-Star Game. It's a $2 billion arena. It's going to hold about 18,000 people. 4,500 of those seats are going to be what is known as the wall on one side of the baseline, on one baseline. So the picture is like, imagine someone shooting free throws and they're shooting into the wall. The wall is going to be 45,000 people, essentially like a supporter section, like you see in soccer, where one section goes crazy. They got the big signs. They're doing chants all game. I think this is an adventurous thing for the Clippers. I think, guys, however, they are starting a little too big. I guess if you're going to build an arena, it's really hard to, like, you know, you can add seats onto an outdoor stadium. You can't really add seats on in an arena. It's an arena. But this seems a little too much for the Clippers right away.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you have a really established hardcore fan base, right? If you're, I don't know, if you're the Lakers, you know, the actual real team in LA, or the Warriors, or something that has like a really established hardcore fan base, maybe you can pull this off. But this feels like, it feels like it's going to blow up in Steve Ballmer's face. Like he kind of wants that passionate crowd, and maybe he's trying to force it a little bit too hard. Like if you have to beg fans to be passionate, then you're probably, you probably don't have passionate enough fans to begin with. But like, I just can't wait for the people, the Laker fan or the visiting fan, who's going to take this quote unquote, you know, loyalty test or whatever it is to get that ticket, and just rip off his fake Clippers shirt at the first sign of, you know, a bad play, and have his Lakers jersey or whatever else underneath and get kicked out of the game and be viral from that.
Yeah, because that's part of the wall. The wall is 4,500 dedicated Clippers fans only. So they're going to make sure that if you sit there, you are a Clippers fan. You and your guests cannot cheer for the opposing team. You can't wear any gear. You may have remembered that Seinfeld episode where they have the owner's seats at the Yankee game and Elaine's wearing the Orioles hat. You can't do that. And I think you got to, like, be engaged the whole time. I do like the idea of it. I really do. I think that soccer does a good job. You know, for whatever reason, even in America, soccer, when you go to a soccer game, and some teams do it better than others, there's an understanding that as fans, you're engaged in the product. You're part of the product. You're part of the game. Sure, you have to pay to get in, but you're part of the environment and experience. I don't know that we do as good of a job of that in America. I feel like we're more reactionary fans, and I'm not speaking for every fan base. The fan base I'm speaking the most for, and I'm in Milwaukee, so my fellow Wisconsinites seem to have a problem with doing this. This would never, like, you think, oh, this isn't going to fly with the Clippers. I don't know, maybe. I know it wouldn't fly with the Bucks. I know it wouldn't fly in Milwaukee. I don't know that you can, even though there's a lot of passionate Bucks fans, I don't know that you can get 4,500 people each game to be there and be as engaged. There's a little pocket section right now of like 30 fans chanting every game, and people purposely buy tickets away from them because they don't want to be by the noise. They're at a basketball game, and they don't want to be by fans that make noise. A lot of fans go there for like I don't know. It's like you can't be bothered. You don't want to be seen. You don't want to have to stand up and cheer. You know, these T-shirt giveaways. Some arenas do a real good job with that. I'm telling you, when there's a T-shirt giveaway in my state, nobody wears the shirt. I don't know if we can't fit in it. Maybe that's the problem. I know I had a hard time squeezing in. I tried to squeeze into the in-season tournament shirt that they gave out. They did give out in-season tournament playoff shirts at a Bucks game, but they gave it out. They want you to wear it. I squeezed into mine. So I just think, like, you watch some of these baseball games overseas, too. Japan, just really anywhere in Asia, they do a great job. They're chanting, they're dancing. It's like we just don't do that here as much. So they're going to try at least to have some sort of section where hopefully that blossoms. I think 4,500 is a little tough of an ask. Maybe you start with like 45 or 450. I really hope it works, because I really hope that sports somehow, and then this is going to be a generational shift, but, you know, you watch these soccer games in England, and again, you watch these baseball games in Japan, and the fans are an actual part of the experience, where here it's like we watch these games like we're in a zoo. Like, no, we're not part of it. We pay just to watch this exhibit. We'll cheer afterwards, and, you know, but we don't want to do anything else. We don't cheer our team to create a moment. We cheer after a moment. Or we boo. We're there to boo you if your team does bad, or if we didn't like your husband because of a documentary and he passed away and you're still sad, and we're going to boo you because of it. That's what we do in America. 855-212-4227. We'll talk a little bit more about my state. I got to do it. The Green Bay Packers still alive? A great excuse to talk some Green Bay Packers. Ryan Wood, Green Bay Press-Gazette, will join us next. The Zach Gelb Show. I'm Bart Winkler.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
CBS Sports Radio in for Zach Gelb. Today I am Bart Winkler. Good to be with you once again in the Zach Gelb chair from my rented studios, essentially, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where people are getting pretty excited. Like I said earlier, it's one thing to go into the playoffs of any sport with expectations where you can't lose. It's another when you've got no expectations, you realize, hey, this is pretty fun where a loss won't destroy me as a person. You still don't want to lose ever, but there's no expectations. So the pain is not that bad, if even at all. Ryan Wood covers the Green Bay Packers, a fan base going through that right now for the Green Bay Press-Gazette and PackersNews.com. And Ryan, good to talk to you again, buddy. I want to talk about, well, a lot of things, but specifically Jordan Love. So if you look at the last 5 games of Jordan Love, he has thrown for 8, 10, 12 touchdowns, no interceptions. The passer rating's never been lower than 109. He's playing very good football. Like, it's not just like the stats are good, like he's throwing a dump off and the guy's going for 60. He is making these throws and throwing these touchdowns. And then if you want to, take away the Giants game or include it in here, it was 1 touchdown, 1 pick. You could add 3 more games back into that with passer ratings over 100 still, this kind of level of dominance. And when you factor all this in, the stats and the big games that like they had to win to get into the playoffs and then a playoff game in Dallas, I don't know that we've seen this kind of stretch really from a Packers quarterback. And I know who the Packers quarterbacks have been, but maybe since 2011 when they were 15-1, maybe since the Super Bowl year. I know Rodgers has had MVP seasons, but has he done this in games where the season was on the line? No, there were a lot of kind of playoff blunders. So I don't know when the last time, Ryan, that we've seen like a stretch like this from any Packers quarterback.
3 words, just for all Packers fans out there. Run the table. You'd have to go back to 2016 when Aaron Rodgers ran the table to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And that was zenith Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that was Aaron Rodgers at the top of his game. And if you look at it, that was an 8-game stretch between middle of the season when he said, feel like they're going to run the table and getting to Atlanta. That was an 8-game stretch, and Aaron Rodgers had something like 21 touchdowns, no interceptions. The last 9 games for Jordan Love, he's got 21 touchdowns and 1 interception. So I guess Aaron Rodgers has the slight edge there and run the table. But this is Jordan Love in his first season as a starter. This is the first time he's ever done this. And so if you can actually make some kind of comparison between this Jordan Love, who you would think is only going to get better after, I mean, your first season is usually not your best season, and zenith Aaron Rodgers, that's a good place for him to be.
I just think it's so fascinating when you look at the Green Bay Packers specifically and what they wanted to accomplish in this season. And the one question was, is Jordan Love the guy? And there were games at the start where, yes, it looked like he was the guy. And then there were maybe some games where it's like, all right, he's the guy, but then, like, what do you give him in terms of an extension? Or, you know, why isn't everybody coming along? Like, he is the guy. The amount of money that he's going to make is, I mean, you're starting it at 50, I think. But if he's playing like this, then that's just kind of the going rate for it. It looked like it could happen, but there's a complete change. Like, this ascension that he is on, I think was possible, but for it to go from like week 7, maybe it's possible, to week 13, oh, it's here. How did it get there so quickly?
I wish I had an answer for you because I'm as baffled as anyone. I've watched every game. I've been there the entire time, and it turned overnight. I mean, you're right. It went from Brian Gutekunst gave a mid-season press conference in which he did not say that Jordan Love is the quarterback of the future to, yeah, duh, he's the quarterback of the future. I mean, beyond all shadow of doubt. So, and this happened in the matter of literally overnight, a couple weeks. It's just, I remember watching this quarterback in October when it was very much an open question. And this Packers offense, it went 5 straight games this season without scoring a first-half touchdown. And it was so bad during that stretch, getting a first down felt like a moral victory for this offense at that time. Getting a first down was a big deal. Touchdown was like going to the moon. And during that time, I remember, you know, Jordan Love was talented. You could see the talent. So many of the problems were the supporting cast around him, which is the youngest offense in the NFL. He doesn't have a receiver who's got more than 2 years of NFL experience. A ton of rookies. Aaron Jones was injured, missed 6 games with injuries this season, and that certainly did not help things on the offense. You could see the talent Jordan Love had. It's just there's so many issues right now, and the quarterback is almost least among them. So a lot of this is the offense has grown up around him and really rapidly matured and developed overnight, kind of like how he's turned his season around. And you look at what they just did to Dallas and just put a beat down on them. They're one of the best offenses in the NFL now. It's an entirely different team, an entirely different offense, entirely different quarterback than what they were in October. You're talking about 2 different entities completely.
I didn't think it would work in terms of like I thought that Jordan Love, and we're talking with Ryan Wood here, Green Bay Press Gazette, PackersNews.com, covering the Packers, of course. I just thought if you had an experiment, you have to have an experiment where you have no other variables, but the whole Packers offense was variables. And I thought growing a team together like this is something you do in basketball. It's something you do with your middle infield in baseball. It's not something you do with football because we saw so many mistakes, guys running into each other, guys running the same route, guys dropping passes. All the receivers, though, have stepped up. They're healthy at tight end, and they're using those 2 tight end sets. Aaron Jones has been a wonder, and he's finally getting this usage, which he hasn't for 5-6 years, and he's finally getting it. And then you have to take on now the San Francisco 49ers, who are going to be a tough test defensively, but the Packers thought that the Dallas Cowboys would be a tough test defensively. I know that sometimes there's these wild card rounds where you see the performance from C.J. Stroud and you see the performance from Jordan Love, and everybody gets really high on these guys, and then they go in on the road to a team with a bye, and the Ravens pick them off a couple times, or the Niners get in there and sack Jordan Love a bunch of times. But if they did it against the Cowboys and they did it against that defense, the Niners offense is going to cause more problems than the Cowboys offense did. But against that Niners defense, is this sustainable the way the Packers offense has been playing?
You know, the surprise in that Cowboys win wasn't even the offense, because at this point we're talking about 2 months that this offense has been not only getting better but really playing at a high level. And over the past 2 months, Jordan Love has performed as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You throw out the first half of the season, you only look at the second half, that's what he's been. The surprise was the defense. So this Packers offense, they can score against anyone. I mean, Aaron Jones ran all over the Chicago Bears defense that came into Lambeau Field. I understand, Packers fans will tell you, the Bears still suck, right? I understand that. But that Chicago Bears defense in the regular season finale had 16 interceptions in his last 6 games. It was the NFL's number 1 rushing defense. And they might have only put up 17 points in that 17-9 win, but they left about double that on the field. They absolutely dominated that game offensively. Aaron Jones had a big game against the NFL's number 1 rushing defense. So what we saw from the offense in Dallas is not the surprise. The surprise is what this defense was able to do to the Cowboys, up 48-16 with 10 minutes left, 27-0 late in the first half. That's the part that I don't think Packers fans saw coming. This Packers offense can score on anyone. Yeah, the 49ers defense is one of the NFL's best defenses, but they've beaten and they've owned good defenses over this stretch they've been on. The question is going to be, can the Packers defense show up the way it has been the last few weeks, but not the way it was when it was given a perfect passer rating to Baker Mayfield in December?
Well, that's the thing. So when you're an NFL fan, I think that most NFL fans can name most NFL coaches. You know, there might be a couple new ones or teams that you don't follow enough, but for the most part, the average NFL fan knows most NFL coaches. The coordinators, you don't really know their names unless it's an old coach or like an Eric Bieniemy or Ben Johnson with the Lions is a hot coaching prospect. Kellen Moore got a lot of TV time, so that's when you start to learn the coordinators. Or if they're really, really bad and there's no reason they should be employed. And it looked like for a long time that Joe Barry, the Packers defensive coordinator, was that guy. And now it's like some Packer fans are saying, well, I don't want to keep winning because then the Packers are going to keep Joe Barry as the defensive coordinator next year. But if the Packers keep winning, part of that would be something that Joe Barry has done. I know they gave up some points at the end there, but you're right. With 10 minutes to go, 16 points they gave up. Well, now it's not just CeeDee Lamb, though, and Dak Prescott. And it's, Tony Pollard, I don't think this was the year that they thought he would have, but now it's Kittle and Deebo Samuel and McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy and their offensive line. And this is going to be if the Packers defense, I'm saying this as a Packer fan, if the Packers defense can do what it did against San Francisco, what it did to Dallas to San Francisco, then you give Joe Barry as much money as he wants too. I mean, if they could do it to San Fran, they could do it to anybody.
I know that pains you to say that too, Bart. That's being a coordinator sometimes in this league is kind of like being an offensive lineman. The only time they know your name is when something done went wrong, right? And you just rather be in obscurity over here on the side. There's no fires to put out. You're doing your job, not having the official say, 10-yard penalty in your number to a stadium full of people. Every Packers fan knows Joe Barry's name. He's not in obscurity. But, gosh, I mean, after that loss that they had to the Bucs a week before Christmas, It's sure the question wasn't if Joe Barry was going to be fired. It was, is he going to be fired by the end of the season, or do you just kind of let it play out and then fire him then? It was when, not if. You got to let it play out. I mean, if they go to San Francisco and just have a meltdown like the 2019 NFC Championship game where the 49ers only had to throw 8 passes and everyone in the building knew that they were going to run and the Packers couldn't do anything about it, maybe it'll have a different flavor, a different tenor at the end of the season. But as it is right now, they've turned things around. And, yeah, what they did in Dallas was very impressive. What they did the week before, I understand Justin Fields is a big question mark in Chicago. But they were able to sack him 5 times and hold him to 3.4 yards per rush. That's not easy to do. They've been playing much better. The question is, will that continue or not? And there's no crystal ball to figure that out.
Ryan Wood, PackersNews.com, Green Bay Press Gazette, Bart Winkler in for Zach Gelb. There's been some similarities if you want to look at the last Super Bowl run the Packers made. They came in as the lowest seed in the NFC. They had a coach in his 5th year. They had a quarterback that had taken over a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And so there's obviously those parallels. I think, though, you're seeing a big difference in terms of, like, what this team is, the fun around the team. This is clearly getting at a Rodgers-specific kind of question. But I just think, like, for you, because I know for me, when I first saw that he's going to the Jets and I had the opportunity to talk to people on a wider scale, I tried to reach Jets fans. I told them, whatever free time you think you have in a day, you got to carve some of that out for Rodgers, whether you want to or not. Because you can't just watch Jets football anymore and maybe grab a podcast, read some articles. You got to be fully invested. He's going to go on McAfee. He's going to set the tone. People are going to answer for that. Like, Wood, you got your Tuesdays free now because you don't have to watch that anymore. It's just like there is a completely different vibe around the team. And I know what Rodgers did for the franchise. I know he recently won MVPs. But when these guys talk about how the camaraderie's good, and like, even if they don't mean to say it, what they're saying is Rodgers is gone.
Yeah, I was just thinking, boy, I haven't watched the Pat McAfee show once this season, and just how much of a wonderful thing that is. Just because that, if you're an NFL beat writer, if you're covering an NFL team, Aaron Rodgers comes on Tuesday, and Tuesday's the one semblance of an off day you might have. So the past few years, it's okay. This one potential off day. What on earth is Aaron Rodgers going to say now? What's he going to say this week that's going to cause something? That hasn't been there. This was very different than the summer of 2008. There were very deep wounds around the Packers and this fan base, this franchise, when Brett Favre went to the New York Jets. When Aaron Rodgers went to the New York Jets, it was very different. It was more, thank you very much for your legacy, your 4 MVPs, your Super Bowl trophy. We're ready for something new. We're ready for what's next. And then that was before anyone knew that Jordan Love would be what he was. So it was a much easier landing strip for Jordan Love to kind of take off his career here than what Aaron Rodgers had coming in after Brett Favre when it was a hailstorm. And it was it was very tumultuous in that time. Wasn't that for Jordan Love this year?
Well, there's a couple of things I'll always give Rodgers credit for, despite the many things I say about him in a negative light. I love that he did not wear number 12 in New York. I'm a big retired number guy, so I really appreciate that he let Namath, even though Namath said he could. I really like that. And he handled the Love thing differently. I know he didn't like it. I know, like, you don't want to see the guy that's going to replace you have a spot, a parking spot as well in your building. But, maybe he's acting, but it does seem like this was a better relationship, surely. And I think that does, you can attribute some of Jordan Love's comfortness. So he just goes out there and play. He doesn't have to deal with any of that stuff. And I do credit Rodgers for some of that.
I don't think there's any question that he handled it differently. I've had people tell me around the team just that Jordan never had an ill word to say about Aaron Rodgers and the treatment that he received, which was not the case early on between Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. But not only that, you watch Jordan Love play, you watch some of the plays he makes, it's pretty apparent he learned something from Aaron Rodgers from those 3 years of developing and observing. The most impressive part of Jordan Love's first season as starter might be the fact that he only threw 11 picks. The guy's never played in the NFL before. A first-time starting quarterback, you expect him to throw the ball to the other team quite a bit. He only threw 4 picks inside Lambeau Field this season. For a guy to come in and take care of the football, who's the best to ever do that? Aaron Rodgers. Nobody's ever taken care, maximized big plays while minimizing turnovers and giveaways better than him. There's some things that Jordan Love certainly learned from Aaron Rodgers, and that's a testament to Aaron Rodgers being willing to kind of not give that cold shoulder that he might have gotten from Brett Favre.
Ryan Wood, Green Bay Press-Gazette. He's online. That's what I say now at by Ryan Wood, PackersNews.com. Thank you as always. Good to catch up, man. Enjoy the weekend, and I know that the off season's always nice, but I hope it doesn't come for you for a while.
Fair enough. Take care, bud.
Ryan Wood joining us here again, Green Bay Press-Gazette and PackersNews.com, been covering the Packers. Won a lot of awards for doing it for a long time, so it's always good on a personal level to catch up with him and also get some good insight on the team heading into the Santa Clara this weekend. And Jordan Love is playing like the best quarterback in the NFC. He's playing like it right now. Is he? We'll take a look at the QB rankings in each division, conference, I should say. On what, like if they were gonna, like if this was a 4-on-4 match, on one side you have Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love. On the other you have C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. It's weighted a little bit, so we'll look at them from both conferences. I'm Bart Winkler and for Zach Gelb, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
CBS Sports Radio, I am Bart Winkler. Great to be with you. 855-212-4227 is the number to call. Every chance that I can be on the radio, I will take. I love my family. But right now, the house, it's got a lot of Trolls. We're watching a lot of Trolls. That song reminded me of Trolls. It was a movie that came out 8 years ago, and for some reason, it's all the rage. We just went through a Sing phase. What did we go through before that? Frozen. But it's just a lot of the same thing every day. I'm trying to lean like, let's go Ninja Turtles here. Let's go we get some Spidey in there, but, oh, man. And then not only do you watch the shows, but then you get in the car and then you have to listen to the soundtrack of those shows. It's quite the experience. So I'm going to savor every minute of listening to my own voice and yours instead. Thank you for that. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4CBS. I think it is interesting as we get down to the playoffs and where we're at right now in the NFL and look at the different quarterbacks that are there. Ranking the quarterbacks. And I am going to rank. We're doing a rank today. I'm doing a ranking. I'm doing a playoff pressure meter. So I'm not going to do two rankings in one show. I could, but I'm not going to today. But top of next hour, playoff pressure meter. The teams that have to win and the teams that are just kind of enjoying the ride. And I think really there's one team who has already changed where they are in that meter. They went from first to last. So I want to talk about all that and how it's going to affect some of these games this weekend. I think that with the quarterbacks, I want to rank them so bad, but again, I'm doing another ranking. The thing where I start to look at these quarterbacks now is the teams that have them, who would they trade them for? That's my thing. Who would they trade them for? And before the season, I'd come up with a bunch, that I don't think they'd trade him for anybody else. I had put Trevor Lawrence and Jalen Hurts in that list. I don't know if they're still in that list. But when you look at the quarterbacks that are left, every team's going to have an affinity for their quarterback. Every team's going to be happy with their quarterback. Like Jared Goff being in Detroit, kind of being an underdog, being a part of this team. They don't want you're part of the identity of that team now. Okay? Same with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, that toughness, that grit, he's basically playing hurt. He gets sacked every play that he gets sacked. He's limping off the field. You're like, I guess Kyle Trask is coming in. No, Baker just threw another touchdown. So some of these quarterbacks, they end up making up the identity of the team. So for this specific couple of weeks here, I'm sure every team would say, no, we want to keep our own guy. But I do think there's some teams that if you're going to play it out and go the rest of the future, there's some teams that would trade for some of the other guys. I think the AFC is pretty set. I think if you're the Bills, you're not trading Josh Allen for any other quarterback in the league. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes still left, but you're not trading him for anybody else. That run that he had was the great example why. Josh Allen has been as much of a part of this turnaround for Buffalo as anything else. It's been amazing to see. And, I thought it was going to be the James Cook show. Once they beat Dallas where James Cook had a bunch of yards, I thought, all right, that's finally going to be how Buffalo wins some of these games they don't win is they have a rushing attack that's not Josh Allen now. But that single play where it looked like he was going to have a first down even fooled Jim Nantz and Tony Romo because they just thought he's going to have a first down and go down, and he just kept running. I mean, I know that Josh Allen gets compared to Big Ben a lot, but this isn't Big Ben. This is more Cam Newton than Big Ben. Did Big Ben ever run like that? I'm not sure. I really don't think so. But Josh Allen does, and he is, I know he can throw some turnovers, but that's what you're going to get out of him. I think that Josh Allen is a guy that Buffalo would not trade for any of these other quarterbacks left. So they've got their guy. The Chiefs obviously are with Patrick Mahomes. He's their ride or die. He's done so well for them. They're finally going to play a road playoff game. This is so intriguing. And the weather in Buffalo is getting nasty again. There's going to be a bunch of snow. I saw somebody with the take or a tweet or whatever about how Buffalo actually is, if there's any stadium that Buffalo that should have a dome, it should be Buffalo. But we've never realized that before because they've never made the playoffs like this so frequently. Because the snowstorms they get in Buffalo, man, it's like the snowstorms, if you're in an area where, I think most areas are like this. You know how when school's canceled and there's only like 5 inches of snow if you're in like the northern part of the country. I know there's some southern parts of the country today where there's like 1 inch of snow, so you cancel. But you don't have the equipment, you don't have the infrastructure to deal with it like cities that are used to it for half the year do. So that's fine. But when you're a parent, it's like 8 inches of snow. We didn't cancel till there were 30 inches of snow. Well, that barely happened. We did cancel for 8 inches of snow back then. It's the same kind of thing. Buffalo now gets the snowstorms we think we got as kids that we remember getting. And they get them constantly. And they're getting them again. And it looks like it's coming now. They don't know if they're going to be able to go back to practice tomorrow or what they're going to do. But the weekend should be fine, so there shouldn't be any issue with the game. But Buffalo repeatedly gets these kind of snowstorms, being in the Northeast, being off the lake. And it's just wild what happens there. But Josh Allen, the guy. Patrick Mahomes, road game, the guy. I don't think they're trading him for anybody. Lamar Jackson, the guy. I don't think, like, if the Chiefs called the Ravens and said Mahomes for Lamar, I don't think they would even call for that, and I don't think the Ravens would either. All these teams are keeping their quarterback. Texans the same. Texans are keeping C.J. Stroud. Now, you could convince a GM, all right, Lamar can get, but they're not trading him. The Texans are keeping C.J. Stroud. If you're going to rank the quarterbacks in the AFC right now, Stroud's probably 4 because he's a rookie, and he's got less on tape. But none of these guys are trading for anybody else. Not in the future, and certainly not this weekend. In the NFC, I do think it's a different story. In the NFC, right now, the Packers aren't trading Jordan Love for anybody else in the NFC, certainly. If they could have Mahomes, if they could maybe have Josh. I know the 49ers would do it. If you're the 49ers, and this is what's so interesting about Brock Purdy, and this is a huge moment for him. This is a huge moment for him. Brock Purdy still has question marks around him. Even though everybody in San Francisco is going to tell you he's like so great and very good. And that Dallas game on Sunday Night Football, I was kind of skeptical. And then I'm like, oh, okay, Brock Purdy can make these throws. My take on Dallas right now, or on San Francisco right now, rather, and I have this take as a guy who doesn't follow the Niners day to day like people around the Bay Area, because the people around the Bay Area that I've seen, they would say, no, we're not trading Brock Purdy for anybody. And it's like either they're thinking like either the goggles are way too strong or he's better than we're all seeing. And we haven't seen that yet. I think if the Packers got a phone call from the Niners that said, hey, before the weekend, let's swap quarterbacks, the Packers would laugh at the phone call. And I think the Niners, if they got the phone call, they would put the phone down, look around, and say, yeah, we'll do it. I think they would rather have Jordan Love than Brock Purdy. Now, I am someone who covers the Niners, or the Packers, rather. So I do think maybe I have the goggles. So if I could go to you guys here, because a lot of what I'm trying to be more cognizant of is, Samter, when I'm talking, I don't just try to talk to fill a segment like I did when I was younger. I try to talk and like listen to what I'm saying and see how it's received. The Niners and the Packers, like, Jordan Love's better than Purdy, right? Or am I crazy?
I would like to think so, but like it could also be recency bias. If you asked me, 6 weeks ago, I would have said, "Are you crazy?" No, it's Purdy.
Yeah.
So I want to see a little bit more of both of them. So I'm not ready to make that definitive statement. But what we've seen lately from Jordan Love, it seems like he might be the real deal. I saw this stat that I think he finished with like just over 4,100 yards and 30-something touchdowns, and the only quarterbacks who finished their first full season as a starter with more touchdowns and passing yards than him were Patrick Mahomes and Kurt Warner. So He's in pretty good company for his first year as a starter. And what we've seen lately, he's just getting better and better every week, especially with a very young and inexperienced receiving core. I will say, though, that Brock Purdy, he has so much talent around him. But, like, as a seventh-round pick, like the next Tom Brady type of feel, like, now I'm not saying 7 championships, just like this guy who came out of nowhere to take over a team. So I don't know yet. But right now, sure, I'll go Jordan Love. But, like, give me a year or two, give me 6 more weeks into next year, I might flip that entire statement.
Because what I'm thinking is, and what I've said about Brock Purdy is, I think Brock Purdy's good. I think he's good. I saw that Sunday night game. I was like, okay, I think he's good. It didn't go so well against the Ravens, but Brock Purdy is good. You can't be bad, and you can't. He's good. He's good. But could Jared Goff have had that season with the Niners? Could Jordan Love have had that season with the Niners? I still think the answer to that is yes. I still think that he's good, but there's other quarterbacks that could have gone in and had that season with the 49ers. And the Niners are trying to say, like, oh, Jordan Love's playing within the system, and maybe they're taking shots at Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they're just saying Jordan Love's a system quarterback. And I know that the system quarterback phrase is such a dirty word now when you still have to be good to run the system. It's not like we're plucking anybody from the stands and saying, go run a 2-minute drive. You have to be good. I just still don't know. I don't even know if we're able to. Like Dak Prescott got a lot of criticism, but the offense around Dak, it's CeeDee Lamb, it's Jake Ferguson when people are playing 15 yards off. Tony Pollard's been nothing for them. He's been very disappointing. The other receivers are give and take. I mean, I think that Dak Prescott the Cowboys are good because of Dak Prescott. I think the Niners were good because the overall cohesiveness of the team was good. Baker Mayfield's great. I think the Bucs trade him for anybody. And I think that Jared Goff, it was a big win for him, but I think the Lions might sniff around on some of those other guys playing Saturday night as well. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4CBS. More on the NFL, the playoffs coming up this weekend, of course. Let's get an update from Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Bart, the Golden State Warriors have dealt with a lot this year, but today's crushing news makes everything else seem insignificant. Assistant coach Dejan Milojevic passed away after suffering a heart attack at a private team dinner last night. He was just 46. Tonight's game between the Warriors and Jazz in Utah had already been postponed. The Raptors continue to reshape their franchise. Pascal Siakam, the latest to go. The pending unrestricted free agent was reportedly dealt to the Pacers in return. Toronto gets 2 first-round picks this year, another in 2026, as well as Bruce Brown and Jordan Nwora. The Raptors also acquired Kyra Lewis from New Orleans as part of the deal. For the first time in 25 years, there's a new head coach in New England, with Gerard Mayo officially introduced today as the new head coach of the Patriots. The 37-year-old is the youngest coach in the NFL, but has an old-school mentality.
I would say I'm a huge believer in just developing people, whether it's on the football field, whether it's off the football field, in the media world, in business. My calling is to be a teacher and to develop people and help them see pretty much what they don't want to see, but they need to see.
Alabama safety Caleb Downs is entering the transfer portal. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
CBS Sports Radio. I am Bart Winkler. In for Zach Gelb today. Call your friends. Call your family. Call all your people. Call your cousin you haven't talked to since, it's been a few Christmases now. After Grandma passed, we don't really get together the way we used to, right? Call your fourth grade teacher. Call whoever. Let them know that in 15 minutes, we are doing the playoff pressure meter. That's right. Who's got the most pressure in the playoffs this weekend? So sometime in the next 15 minutes, I need to make that list. But I do know that we will go through the list. And I will have that. I will be prepared. I will have that for you. Who's got the most pressure to win? Because what I'm realizing as a fan, and what I've known, but it's fun to experience it, is the playoffs are a hell of a lot more fun when a loss doesn't guarantee straight depression. Like when you have it's a lot funner to be in the position of, hey, we can lose and then be optimistic for next year and be proud of this year. Because not everybody wins every year. But sometimes your team, you get to a point where you gotta win. You gotta win. Otherwise, what a waste of time. And what's next for the franchise? I think the Eagles were kind of in that spot. Although they got to a point where they were so bad at the end of the year that the pressure started to win, like it just went away. They were so bad that there was barely any pressure. Fletcher Cox, is how he'd prefer it to be pronounced. Fletcher Cox was at his locker today and said this about Nick Sirianni. He said, "What is there to talk about? This man is a winner. He's a winner head coach. We had some bumps this year, yes, but every team goes through it. But we don't look at firing a man who has won 10-plus games 2 years in a row, made the playoffs 3 years in a row. Have some respect. He's a good leader for his team, and he does a really good job." So some of the Eagles players today were speaking positively about Nick Sirianni, which I think is fine. I think you might get. I don't know that it does anything for the player to come out and say, man, Sirianni sucks. Man, we lost that game because of Sirianni. Man, I'm surprised he hasn't been fired yet. I was going to park in his spot today to do this, but surprisingly, he was here. Like, it doesn't benefit the player to say that either. And actions are louder than words. So the words are great. The words are great. The actions, just the way that team from the start never looked like they had any life, you got to wonder what's up with Sirianni. So I honestly thought that we would have some news on this by now. I thought we'd have some news on McCarthy by now. I thought we'd have more concrete news on Jim Harbaugh by now. And this is one of those situations where, like with baseball, a lot of the free agents didn't sign, and really some still haven't signed because they were waiting on Shohei Ohtani for the first domino to fall. Well, there's so many first dominoes right now. Like, what needs to fall first? What needs to fall first? Are some of these coaches waiting to see if some of these jobs open up? Are some of these teams waiting to see if these coaches go somewhere else? Is Belichick waiting on Harbaugh? Is Harbaugh waiting on Carroll? Is Carroll waiting on Vrabel? Are the teams what's going on here? When's the first domino going to fall? So it's pretty interesting, the kind of situation that we're in right now in terms of why there seems. I mean, I don't know. I know we're in a 24-hour society, microwave kind of society, but it does seem like there'd be more news to report at this time. And we'll see what happens, specifically with some of these NFC East teams, two of them that lost this weekend that could be moving on from their coach. A team that did not want to move on from their coach was Alabama, and they are having a rough day after Nick Saban stepped down. So today alone, and they've got their new coach, Kalen DeBoer, and he's assembling a staff that people are pretty excited about. He's bringing in head coaches from other places. Just today, SEC Freshman of the Year and star safety Caleb Downs is expected to enter the portal. He's entering the portal, so that's happening. Their starting left tackle, Caden Proctor, also intends to go into the portal. And they had a 5-star, Zion Grady, who decommitted. That was today, all right? Since losing the Rose Bowl, they've obviously seen Nick Saban retire. They saw 21 players now, at least 21 players, enter the transfer portal. And they saw 6 recruits from the class of 24-25 already decommit. Saban's announcement has shooken up not only his program, but Washington's, Arizona State, San Jose State, South Alabama, Buffalo, as there's all this movement with coaches filling in these gaps, going up the ladder, so to speak, but also joining Kalen DeBoer's staff. So it's been a real ripple effect after Nick Saban. And that's one of the things I wondered about Alabama when Nick Saban stepped down, is without the premier coach, and I mean this with all due respect, which I say when I'm going to say something that might insult somebody, is Alabama a prestigious program, or are they only a prestigious program when they have an all-time coach? That's what I wonder. Wallace Wade, back in the 20s, he won 3 titles. Frank Thomas won a couple. These guys are regarded as great coaches back in their day. Bear Bryant, obviously, who some Alabama fans will still say is better than Nick Saban. They won in 92 with Gene Stallings. I remember, though, Alabama, so I'm about 40 almost. The Alabama that I know was never, great. I mean, maybe they were like an Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss, Ole Miss's Lane Kiffin, what do? They win 9-10 games, make a nice bowl game. They're not competing for national championships. That's what they were at their best. Some years they were even worse than that. I mean, Mike Shula came in, and some of those seasons have been vacated, but these are 6-7 teams. It wasn't until Nick Saban came where he really changed the program around, and there's a bunch of infrastructure that he had built along with that. So I wonder, is Alabama, Ohio State, right? They're a prestigious program, we think. Yeah. Is Alabama one of those programs? Or are they one of those programs when they have the good coach? Or do they attract the good coaches because it's Alabama? Like I remember when Tom Crean left, was it Marquette to go to Indiana? They said, "Why are you leaving?" And he said, "It's Indiana. Like I have to coach in this place. It is one of the premier destinations and programs in college football." And I just wonder, the same way we talk about the success, is it made by the quarterback? Is it made by the coach? How much is made by the quarterback? How much is made by the coach? Is it like that in this sport? How much is made by the coach? How much is made by the program? So that's an interesting thing to wonder with Alabama. I also saw they reported the number the other day about the Peacock, the Peacock ratings. 23 million people watched, and yes, more people would have watched it on NBC, but that's a lot of people watching for a lot of people that said they wouldn't. And I am protective of the streaming service because it saves me money as a WWE fan. I used to pay $50 for pay-per-views. Now I basically just pay $50 for the year, so it saves me money. So I am protective of it. There's another number reported from the weekend, and that is the number 15. And that 15 people were sent to the hospital for attending that game. There were a lot of phone calls, but actually 15 people then had to go to the hospital after that game. Look, I don't know if I'm a little more bougie in my old age. I like a good seat when I go to a game now. Unless it's like a real big event, I'm not going to be like a just get me in kind of guy. And I'll go in the cold. If it's 15 degrees, 20 degrees, you can bundle up. Once you get in the negatives, and that Buffalo game, maybe for the experience, but it should not be like, you should not maybe go to the hospital. If that's a possibility of going to a game, don't go to a game. My playoff pressure meter is next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
CBS Sports Radio. I am Bart Winkler in for Zach Gelb, hour number 3 of this 3-hour affair. You can expect Zach tomorrow and expect me back in the, what is it, overnight? What show do I have? The night shift? No, Amy Lawrence is overnight. What do I do?
Late nights.
The hybrid. Late nights? Yeah, okay. Late night. But if you're in the Pacific time, it's evening. It's tough. I don't like time zones. I've talked about that. It's very confusing. Very confusing. But I am typically on now. For 2 weeks I have been at least. From 10 p.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. 2 a.m. Oh, that'd be tough. To 2 a.m. Eastern. Pacific, that would be 7 Pacific at night to 11 Pacific at night. So good to be here for Zach today and back in the afternoon for a bit. Going to have a free evening. I think the family wants to do something with that free evening. Daddy kind of just wants to, play Madden all night with his free time, but we'll see. We'll see how the night plays out tonight. I started a franchise with the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't know if it's just me or if it's the quarterback, but Kyler Murray sure does throw a lot of interceptions and fumbles the football a lot. I think it's me. But I want to play that tonight. So maybe we'll get there. But when I play Madden, hey, no pressure. I can just reset. I can just turn it off if I'm losing, which I will do. I have no shame to do that. I will do that. These teams in the playoffs, some of them have pressure. Some don't. One, I think, did and now doesn't, which makes them even more scarier. I think you can kind of follow me on that one. At least that's where I look at it. But I think that as a fan, and I'll bring up my experience, I think that's healthy. I think it's good to know the people that you're listening to on the radio, it's good to know that they actually like sports. I think too many people pretend that, well, I don't have a favorite team. Well, yeah, you do, though. Just tell us. Mine's the Green Bay Packers. How many times did I watch Aaron Rodgers lead a team into the playoffs where it looked like the Packers were the favorite, and then the Giants came in and upset them, or the Niners beat them? The Niners have never lost to Aaron Rodgers. Green Bay Packer quarterbacks, non-Aaron Rodgers, in the playoffs are 4-1 against San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers is 0-4. Can't beat him. Cannot beat him. So, will Jordan Love turn that trend? We'll see. But again, there's no pressure on the Packers. I mean, once you get to this point, this is what was interesting about that Packers-Dallas game, is there was no pressure on the Packers. And then so fans can come into it a little bit more like, oh, this is crazy. We're in the playoffs. It's not going to like crush me for years. There's some playoff losses I'm still not over. I'm not over when they lost in 2014 to Seattle. I actually think that's the second time I brought it up just today. I'm not over when they lost to the Buccaneers in 2020. The COVID year, as we deem it. I'm not over that. But when the Packers went up 27-0, it's like everybody that I text during these games, when we text each other, all right, yeah, we can't lose this game now. It would be catastrophic if we lose this football game. You absolutely cannot do it after this lead. That's why even when they were still up big, 16 points at the end, I was still pacing with a minute to go. You never know. You never know. You never know. But I don't think the Packers have a lot of pressure still going into San Francisco, the 1 seed this weekend. They're a 10-point favorite. So I present to you my playoff pressure meter. And the beginning of the meter is playing with house money. And the end of the meter will be absolute pressure cooker. And I think there's actually a lot of teams that are playing with house money. In fact, probably more so than that have the pressure. There's a lot of pressure-free teams in the playoffs right now, which is why I think we're going to be in for a good round. I know some of the great graphic, by the way, on the YouTube. It's a pressure meter, and it says playoff pressure meter. And I just noticed it, and it's very sharp. You can find us on YouTube, by the way, for free. Also, the Odyssey app for free. And I do think that that's one thing that I've been talking about on the late night show is why people were so upset that there was a football game on Peacock, because it cost you $5.99. And I always grew up thinking you have to pay for entertainment. But then the Odyssey app came along for free to download, free to listen to. And that kind of completely changed the game. So I get it. You're used to getting your entertainment for free. I get it. Thanks to Odyssey. So who's got the least amount of pressure? The least amount of pressure goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Absolutely. Like, you couldn't have less pressure than Tampa Bay. I bet you if you ask normal fans who watch the playoffs, okay, and if you get a person on the street, or those 30-second things in the middle of a halftime game in an NBA game, and they say name all eight teams in the playoffs in 30 seconds. I bet you under pressure, a lot of people will forget that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are even here, which isn't a bad thing. It's a good spot to be in. House money is a good spot to be in. The Buccaneers won a Super Bowl a few years ago with many of these guys. Baker Mayfield, I don't think there's a lot of pressure on him. He's done enough where it looks like Tampa Bay is going to want him back, and maybe he has rejuvenated his career, or at least finally found the place he was looking for. They just played an Eagles team who, was a free square in these playoffs. And yeah, they're on the road. I don't think they've got any pressure at all. House money stacked. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have the least amount of pressure of any team, which is saying a lot because there's a lot of teams that I don't think have any pressure. All right, so we'll go from 8 to 1. So Buccaneers 8, number 7, the Houston Texans. How on earth could they have any pressure at all? Maybe last week they did. Nobody expected them to win the AFC South. Nobody expected the AFC South to come down to the final week like in a good way. That division was Jacksonville's and then nobody else. Like Jacksonville, I think I might have predicted Jacksonville to win that division at 8-9, which was going to be still 3 or 4 games above second place because that division was bad. At least that was the perception. The Colts did very well. Obviously, Jacksonville was doing good before they collapsed even harder than the Eagles. The Titans didn't have a great year, and there's changes coming there for sure. But Houston gets in on the final weekend. C.J. Stroud, we got our guy. I mean, it's a big part of this. They wanted to know at the beginning of the season, was C.J. Stroud the guy? And the answer is yes. The Carolina Panthers want to know, is Bryce Young the guy? They don't know yet. The Bears wanted to know, is Justin Fields the guy? They don't know yet. The Steelers, too. Kenny Pickett, is he the guy? Some of these seasons where is the guy? And they don't quite know. And when you get benched for Mason Rudolph, maybe that answers your question. But the Texans have no pressure. No pressure whatsoever. Going into Baltimore, on the road. You've done what you needed to do. You've advanced beyond your wildest years. No pressure. I think the Green Bay Packers still have very little pressure, if any. You're still on house money. You're on house money. Now, you might get some fans saying, hey, there's some comparisons to the year they won the Super Bowl. And the Niners, the reason I put the Packers ahead of these other teams is because the 49ers have had your number over the last 10 years. And it would be nice to break that. It would be nice to get out of that. And also, Matt LaFleur might be feeling a little bit of pressure since he's been the coach for these games. And it's notable that he is friends with Kyle Shanahan, that he and Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, they're all attached in the same circle. And when Matt LaFleur usually coaches against his friends, he gets beat. And for a while, his brother Mike was with San Francisco, and then they would just beat up on him. So I think that Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach, could be feeling a little bit of pressure. Other than that, you got Jordan Love, you got your guy, you got a defense who's playing above their skis. You didn't think it would get to this point. You're in the divisional round. I mean, this team was 2-5. This team was 3-6. This team looked like they were going to make the playoffs and then lost to Tommy DeVito. Remember Tommy DeVito? Remember the 2 weeks where Tommy DeVito was good and somehow that meant that everyone could just run wild with Italian stereotypes because the DeVito family was doing it, which is a 10 to 12% Italian American on my mom's side. That did offend me. I feel like a lot of people kind of ran with that because it's like, oh, you can't say anything about anything anymore, which is probably good. But if the Italians are making fun of themselves, then we can make fun of them too. And as an Italian, let me just tell you, deep down, sincerely, I'd like to say, I was very offended. That was very, very much so. Is that I'm Italian. Thanks for the laugh track.
I couldn't help myself, man.
I was trying to sound sincere and then hit you with the Italian. My great-grandpa was off the boat. And my secret theory is that the DeVitos aren't really Italian, that they're just pretending. So, Packers, no pressure. That's where I was going with that. The next team with little pressure, how about this one? And they actually might have the most house money of all. The Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions. They had the most pressure last weekend, more so than Dallas. More so than Philly. They had the most pressure. This was 30 years in the making. Fans were ready, too. Fans were ready. Remember that Browns game a few years ago where they had lost like 17 in a row, and it was a Thursday night, I believe, against the Jets, and the fans, they just felt like, okay, tonight's going to be the night. We just know we're going to win. And they did. And this was like that. Lions fans came because they knew. They knew they were going to win. And it still went down to the bitter end, but they knew they were going to get it done. And it was against Matt Stafford, of all people. And I thought the pressure might get to Jared Goff. Because when Matt Stafford was back, yeah, he's looking at all these Detroit fans who adore him, or at least did. They booed him a little bit. But when he's looking at across the sideline, he doesn't see much of his old teammates. He doesn't see his old coach. Jared Goff still did, Sean McVay. So I think there was a lot of pressure, but they got through it. And now they can play loose. Now they can play free. I think Buccaneers, Lions, over. I think the spread is closer than it might be. Was it 6 or something? Over. Hit the over. These teams are going to play loose. They are going to play free. They are going to just play and have fun and enjoy. They're just going to enjoy the game. I think there's very little pressure on the Detroit Lions, which to me, because they're at home, because they're so good, might be the scariest team left because there's no pressure. And how about that? That whole reporting as eligible thing back a few weeks ago, it all worked out. Dallas lost. Detroit won. Detroit gets to host a home game now without the pressure. Then the top 4. So those are the bottom 4. The top 4. We're going to go Kansas City Chiefs, which they are a road team. So this is the only road team in the top 4 because I bumped the Lions down. The Chiefs, I think the Chiefs don't have a lot of pressure because they've won a bunch last year. It doesn't feel last ridey. You know, the Kelsey thing to it. How long do we have for Jason? Looks like he's going to retire with the Eagles. How long do we have with Travis? But Mahomes will be there. Andy Reid will be there. I think this year they can look at it and say, look, there were some games we could have won, should have won. We got to upgrade at receiver. We know what to do. We'll be back next year, and it'll be just fine. There's still a dark horse scenario where the Chiefs still somehow host the AFC Championship game. If the Texans win and they win, I don't like that. I'm tired of seeing them there. But I don't think there's a lot of pressure on the Chiefs. You want to go into Buffalo. You want to win. This is your first road game, so there's a little bit of can they win on the road? But ultimately, I don't think it's going to tarnish anything for previous years or for future years. So they're 4th. They're ahead, but they're in the top half. But I don't know how much pressure there is. The Niners have a lot of pressure, so I put them at 3. I'm ranking teams in order of how much pressure they have. Buccaneers 8, Texans 7, Packers 6. Lions I put at 5, Chiefs 4, Niners 3. I don't think the Niners have as much pressure as these other 2 teams, but there's some pressure there. There's pressure on Brock Purdy. He's got to play well. There's pressure on San Francisco because they have won a lot over the last 30 years. They're in the Super Bowl a couple of times, but they haven't won a Super Bowl since the 94 season. So there's certainly pressure on them. And then I would put the Ravens at 2. Ravens have some pressure. They've won under John Harbaugh, but Lamar Jackson's 1-3 in the playoffs. And Lamar Jackson should be the MVP. The Ravens were my Super Bowl pick coming into this thing. I think they can win in any condition, any weather, any element, any stadium. I think the Ravens have the best team. But there's one team with more pressure than anybody, and it's the Buffalo Bills. And it shouldn't be that way, maybe, but it is. And part of that is because of who you're playing this weekend. You're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs have knocked you out of the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. And this season looked lost for you at times. So you could say house money, right? You could say house money. Then an article comes out about some weird stuff Sean McDermott had said 6 years ago. And it's like, oh, no, how's the team going to respond? Weirdly, they haven't lost since. But now you've got to play the Chiefs. And now it's in your place. So I would say that overall, the Ravens and the Niners might have more pressure. As a team, you could convince me the Niners are at the top. The Ravens, though, I think the Lamar thing, him being 1-3 in the playoffs, is part of it. But the Bills, because they're playing the Chiefs this weekend at home, have the most pressure. This has been your team that's knocked you out, and now you get them at home. There's sometimes, I'll invoke my Packer fandom again. Man, when the Packers were good in the 90s, they would go to Dallas every year and they would lose, which is crazy now because now the Packers always beat Dallas. But in the 90s, they would always lose. They'd always go to Dallas and lose. And when the Packers got the top seed in 96, Packer fans are actually mad that Dallas lost in the playoffs to Carolina because they wanted Dallas to come to Green Bay because they wanted to finish the story, credit Cody Rhodes, by beating that enemy at home. Kind of like what I referred to earlier. We like the Michael Jordan story so much because he beat the Pistons, gets by the Pistons, and finally erases that. Gets past them in the East. So I think that the Bills, and maybe it'll change after next week, but for this weekend, the Bills have the most pressure. We'll talk more about that. Get the guys' reaction, 855-212-4227. The pressure playoff meter, or did I call it playoff pressure meter? Either way, that's what we're at right now. 855-212-4227, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
CBS Sports Radio. My name is Bart Winkler, in for Zach today. Thanks for being along with us. I've just unveiled the playoff pressure gauge meter. We're name shopping. We're workshopping a name. I think I'm going to go with Bart's Barometer. Alliteration. There's nothing like it, especially in this business, when you can do alliteration. Bart's Barometer. Oh, it's beautiful. When I do guest hits on different places, they're like, well, what day of the week should we have you on? And I go, any day of the week. I'm free. And they say, what about Wednesday? And I say, why? And they say, because of your last name. I go, my last name's Winkler. Winkler Wednesdays. It's like, can't we just do a hit on a different? Nope. Winkler Wednesdays. And today is a Wednesday. Look at that. Bart's Barometer on a Winkler Wednesday.
Can we just call it Winky Wednesday?
I don't like that. I'm not particular. This is probably not the time or place, but whatever. I'm not particular about my name. I've been called a lot of things. I do kind of get upset when I get called Bert. I don't mind Bort from The Simpsons. Bert, I kind of don't like. I'm not Bartholomew either. I'm just Bart. I'm not just Bart. Bart's a strong name of itself. But I don't like Winky. I don't like Winky or Wink. Winks is fine. But when people call me like Wink, I don't know what it is. I don't like it. So, no. Maybe it has something to do with, I don't know. I don't like it. So, strike that from the record. Okay?
Well, there is a name and a word that I hate. It begins with M, as in Michael, and ends with an O-I-S-T. I find the word to be deplorable and disgusting, and yet that has become my nickname. So, sometimes the nicknames you get are not the nicknames you choose.
Why does everyone hate that word?
I don't know, but it makes me want to vomit every time I hear it.
Well, then I won't say it. I could be a jerk and say it, but I won't say it. And this is typically when I do a little, I'm not going to say it. I really am tempted now to say it, but I won't. Instead, maybe Johnny in Pittsburgh wants to say it, or he wants to talk about my pressure meter, 855-212-4227. I'll remind people I ranked the teams in terms of least amount of pressure to most. Close. Buccaneers 8, Texans 7, Packers 6, Lions 5, Chiefs 4, Niners 3, Ravens 2, Bills, I believe, are at number 1. Johnny is in Pittsburgh. What's up, Johnny?
What's up, roadie named Bart? If you get the Tom Petty reference there. I don't know if you've heard that song. And also, I will not say the M word because my wife hates that word. Not that she's listening, but I will not do that to you guys. Transplant to Pittsburgh, lifelong Bills fan. I was there as a kid, suffering through, enjoying the 90s, but also suffering through the Super Bowls. I was in Miami. It was also snowed in Buffalo last week. There's an air of optimism this year. There's an air of total pressure this year. The team will not be the same next year. There's a lot of cap space issues. But I will tell you this, you hit the nail on the head. This is, I think, the most pressure. However, Josh Allen is literally playing out of his skull right now. And I will say that he is a leader, not just a quarterback. He is a field leader and a locker room leader. And I would dare say if the Eagles had that presence this year in the locker room and off, to dispel some of the, the drama, as I call it, they probably wouldn't be in this situation. But that's who he is. He's putting the team on his shoulders. I am a little bit worried about the skeletons in the closet that are the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think this will be a low-scoring affair, but there is something about this team. I don't want to keep going back to the Giants, the wild-card Giants. They got hot at the right time. But I feel that way with this team. They're getting hot at the right time. There's a lot of confidence. There's a lot of puck luck, if you will, going in their favor. And they got Josh Allen. And they're playing at home. So I think this is the year we overcome it. I've never said that ever in my past, but I think this is the year we win the Super Bowl.
Well, now you're adding pressure. You just added pressure. Johnny, thanks for the call.
So much better. I feel so much better.
All right. Well, hey, I'm rooting for you. I like to see when people overcome their obstacles, and this is a big one. And that's what's interesting about the Bills is any time that I talked about the Bills in the offseason, I didn't get the narrative. I did not get the narrative. The narrative was the window had closed. Not is closing, but had closed. I don't think it had closed. Well, now, after this year, it might close. Johnny had to have a good week being in Pittsburgh. Steelers fans, game getting moved around, governor talking at you, saying you probably wanted the game moved. You don't want to come here anyway. And then, the Bills got blown. I thought, was it George Pickens tried to say we're playing the Bills and the refs? No, you're not, sir. You were playing against the Bills, and your team's no good. How you got to 500 again is Mike Tomlin. How there are any rumors or suggestions that he should go is one thing. I get it with coaches. I use Andy Reid as this example. Is sometimes when you keep, and Mike McCarthy could be this example too. Sometimes you're really good at getting to a spot, but you can't get past that spot. And that's why Andy Reid could get to the NFC Championship game, but he couldn't win a Super Bowl. And Mike McCarthy can have 12-5 regular seasons, but he can't advance in the playoffs. Mike Tomlin, Steelers fans would tell you, can't get us to a Super Bowl again, but I don't think he's playing with like the same hand as some of these other. He's getting to the final table with 2 6s and maybe Jack 3. He's scratching his clawing his way when everybody else is getting pocket rockets or 2 Johnnies, 3 Jacks and a pair of 9s, little OAR. So again, my standings. I think the Buccaneers have the most house money because I'm not sure, but he realizes they're in the playoffs. The Texans, the Packers, the Lions who are at home, but I think have less pressure because they already overcame their pressure. Like if the Bills win this weekend, I think that will actually lower the pressure a little bit, just like it did with the Lions. I take the Chiefs at 4, Niners at 3, Ravens at 2, Bills at 1. How about you guys? Samter, Kovacs, where are you guys with Bart's barometer today?
So, yeah, it's interesting. I think the Bills are pretty much the definite ones that are the most pressure. I would say the Niners are pretty close, though. Like, this is a chance for them. We've seen a bunch of seasons where they're either the best team in the NFC or one of the 2 best teams in the NFC, but have not gone over the hump yet. So I think for me, those 2 teams, again, the Bills speak for themselves. The Chiefs are down this year. They actually host the Chiefs for one. So I definitely think the Bills are 1 and the 49ers 2.
Ravens, where do we put the Ravens?
Yeah, so for me, I got the Ravens 1. Listen, I get that the Bills have that pressure, but it feels like with the way they started the season, what's happening now, if they were to lose to the Chiefs, yeah, there'd be a disappointment, but they'd be like, man, we fired our offensive coordinator, we went on this run, we were red hot, we just fell to the Chiefs again. But, like, there was doom and gloom in Buffalo. It felt like they had to blow it up, fire Sean McDermott, revamp this whole thing. Maybe Josh Allen's not the guy. You know what? Like, I think this season kind of turned it around. So even if they lose or they don't win it, I think that there's optimism there with the season. 49ers, the same thing. Brock Purdy, first full season, if he's healthy, if he doesn't get hurt. I feel like there's still optimism. They're still young. They still have an opportunity to, win more. The Ravens have been here. They're a veteran team. Lamar Jackson has so many questions to answer. Like, say you will about Josh Allen, he's won playoff games. Brock Purdy and the 49ers have been to Super Bowls and NFC Championship games. Lamar Jackson, every single time he's been favored in the playoffs, has fallen short. And while John Harbaugh has that championship, it's been a while. And now his big brother is breathing down his neck. So who knows what happens? Like, maybe John needs to kind of re-cement the Harbaugh name with Jim winning the national championship. I think the Ravens by far have the most pressure. And honestly, I don't even think it's close. And I love Lamar. I want Lamar to win. But the other part of me is like, is there anybody rooting against the Texans? So even though I love Lamar and I want the Ravens to win, I don't want them to win. I want the Texans to go.
Is there anybody rooting against anybody? Like, who's the team that, maybe the Chiefs? People are tired of the Chiefs. But I think that from a national spot, unless you're like a rival of one of these teams, who's hateable?
That's a great point. Nobody is.
Well, I think you made the point, and I'm just stealing it from you.
No, see, I'm not anti-Ravens. I'm just pro-Texans. I love what they're doing there.
Yeah, I mean, even like if you hate the Packers, I don't know. There's a lot of teams that.
But even if you hate the Packers, don't you have to like love them for what Jordan Love, pun intended, is doing, and the fact that they got rid of Aaron Rodgers, and they like as soon as they got rid of Aaron Rodgers, boom, skyrocketing right back to the top. Like, so you have to love the Packers for what they're doing, even if you hate them for what they've been.
I thank you. I appreciate that. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4CBS. Let's get an update from Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the Golden State Warriors were dealt a cruel and tragic blow today. Assistant coach Dejan Milojevic passed away after suffering a heart attack at a private team dinner last night. He was just 46 years old. Tonight's game between the Warriors and Jazz in Utah was postponed earlier today. The Pacers are making a play to be more of a contender in the East, reportedly swinging a big deal with the Raptors to acquire Pascal Siakam for 3 first-round picks, 2 of them in this year's draft, as well as Bruce Brown and Jordan Nwora. Toronto also gets Kyra Lewis in the deal from New Orleans. It's officially the changing of the guard in Foxborough. Gerard Mayo took over today as he was introduced as the new head coach of the Patriots. And with all due respect to his predecessor, Mayo's opening press conference was much more enlightening as anything that has been seen that way in quite some time. He may be a different man, but the message very similar to Bill Belichick.
The more I think about like the lessons that I've taken from Bill, hard work works, right? Hard work works, and that's what we're all about.
Alabama freshman safety Caleb Downs has entered the transfer portal. He was second-team All-American last year and first-team All-SEC. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
CBS Sports Radio. I am Bart Winkler in for Zach today. JR Sport Brief Show coming up next. And then after that on CBS Sports Radio is the Bart Winkler Show. Although tonight it'll be David Shepard. I could do, if I did this show and that show, that's 7 hours. That's not even an 8-hour day. But 3 hours in radio is like 8 in real life. This is what I always tell people. They're like, do you only work 4 hours a day? I go, no. 4 is like 9. Once you're in radio, if you're in radio, you'll get it. If you're not, you're like, you only work 4 hours. No. And then the great part about sports radio is that all these games that I want to watch anyway, it's work. It's work. Yes, I'm going to watch these football games anyway. Yes, I'm going to bet on these games anyway. Yes, I'll probably have a few cocktails during them anyway, but it's all under the name of work. And that's what makes us pros. And it's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Pete in Punta Gorda, Florida, has a question. He wants to know, where do you guys think Jim Harbaugh will land? You can submit your questions each and every day by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag AskThePros. Then think O'Reilly Auto Parts for your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Where does he land? The Chargers seem to be the favorite. And the interview he had with them, he had an interview with Atlanta, which, again, I don't know how long these interviews are. I mean, just like, what do you need to, what do you want to ask me? Everything I've ever done is documented. What do you want to ask me? It's nice to, like, meet the person, but what do you want to ask me? I don't think that the Chargers' job is as attractive as I think the narratives say it is. Like with Belichick, when we're talking about him for so long, well, he's got to go to the Chargers. He's got to go to the Chargers. That's the most attractive job. Okay, why? Justin Herbert. What's reason number 2? What? I said, what's reason number 2? What besides Harbaugh makes that job attractive? Or Herbert? Nothing. They've got a lot of guys that are either going to be free agents or are making a lot of money. They're going to be in some cap situation. The fan base is not great. So maybe the Chargers really want Jim Harbaugh. Like, Jim Harbaugh will bring some people in. You know, we got some Michigan alum out here and whatever. You know, whatever they want to do there. They share a stadium. I don't know. That's super easy to, like, get to any of these places. I don't know. I don't know that that's as an attractive draw as it's getting painted out to be. If Harbaugh's coming to the NFL, which we assume that he will be, what he wants to do is win a Super Bowl, the thing he's never been able to do. Got close, hasn't done it. He can leave Michigan. Now's a good time to leave Michigan because he's done it all. But if he's going to leave, the goal is to win a Super Bowl. Can he look at the Chargers as a place where he thinks he can win, let's say, in 3 years? And if that's the answer, then I think he could maybe find himself there. Atlanta's interesting, too. Atlanta's interesting because it's like you have everything else, especially on offense, but the quarterback. So maybe, and there was a report that the Raiders want to do this. I think they gotta stay with Antonio Pierce. I mean, I know it's a great free agent market of coaches, but that's a guy who clearly has made a difference. Clearly the players want, they have said it. That's a big thing. A big thing with the coaches is, and people would ask us this about Harbaugh, is what makes him such a good coach? And I think that, you know, a lot of these coaches, they have similar work ethic, they have similar drive. The information that they have is available to them. I think it helps when you've played a position. You can understand more about that position and kind of like guide J.J. McCarthy, let's say, in ways that maybe a non-quarterback couldn't. But guys just want to play for him. You know, I don't know that the average college football fan says, I like Jim Harbaugh. And a lot of people don't like Michigan. And there was all the stuff around them this year. But Jim Harbaugh, the guys that play for Jim Harbaugh, play for Jim Harbaugh. And will that translate to the pros? We'll see. But if Jim Harbaugh wants to win a Super Bowl, maybe he goes to Atlanta, convinces them to draft J.J. McCarthy, and rides there. Because those two, they're like enamored with each other. I don't think they want to play anywhere else. I think it's almost more likely that those two end up being together again in some way, shape, or form than it is that LeBron James ever takes the court with his son, Bronny, which is a certified lock. Certified lock. LeBron will play anywhere if it's to play with his son. Even if, like, the whole NBA decides, he ain't good enough to play here, then he'll go play somewhere else. LeBron will do it. He wants to play with his kid. And LeBron, man, I still watch him. I still think we take him for granted. I know his whole life we're comparing him to Jordan, which is, I mean, If you're comparing someone to Jordan and having that discussion, is that not enough? Like, do we need to settle on a 1 or a 2? Is that not enough for like, wow, this guy's pretty good. Let's enjoy him while he's here. So I think that Harbaugh, but I don't know. Does he want to coach in Atlanta? And what's more open right now? Where's a better path to get into the playoffs? Where's a better path to get into the Super Bowl? Maybe Atlanta, maybe the NFC. Just look at the quarterbacks in the playoffs. Lamar, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Stroud. That's the AFC. You want to compete there? NFC, Jordan Love's good. Brock Purdy's good. Jared Goff's pretty good. Baker Mayfield's playing good. But is that the same thing? Nah, it's not. It's not the same thing. Speaking of, well, I guess nothing, but I'll just transition. Speaking of the NFL, I could say, Hard Knocks has to pick its team. And Hard Knocks, the thing about Hard Knocks is I think there's now more drama for who's going to be forced to do it than there is who actually watches it. I know the Dolphins one, I've seen a lot of clips of the Dolphins one. The in-season one is maybe even better than the preseason one, but the preseason one's on in training camp when we're all getting excited and like there's nothing else going on. All right? Like The Last Dance was a good documentary, but why did we all watch it? It was literally the only sports there was at that time. There was nothing going on. There were no games. And so every Sunday night, we would settle in and watch a story about a thing we already knew. And because we needed to. But Hard Knocks shows you as it's happening, just 2 days later, like, boy, I wonder what it was like in that Dolphins locker room after that cold game that they lost. Well, now you know. Now you know. So the in-season is actually better than the preseason, but I'm not sure how many people like flock to watch this. I watched the first Jets one this year, and then I watched the second one, and then I was done. I mean, the Jets one this year was an infomercial. They reluctantly agreed to it, which they had to, because there's qualifications to do it. You have to not have a new coach or make the playoffs or stuff like that. So right now, unless the Bears fired their coach to get out of this, the Bears, Broncos, and Saints would be the three teams that don't have the option of saying no. A team can volunteer and say, hey, look, we'll be on Hard Knocks. I don't know why they would do it, but they can. The NFL can also say, like, hey, guys, can we, I know we don't have to, but we'd really like the story here. Can we do that? And a team can do that. But in terms of a training camp that I want to see the ins and outs of, I think I would have to go with the Bears of those three, Bears, Broncos, and Saints. Saints, I just flat out don't really care. I don't think there's ever been a more like non-playable character as a head coach than Dennis Allen. Is Dennis Allen going to be the coach there in 2 years? Probably not. Is he going to be the coach? Is he going to be like the Saints' great coach? No, he's just there guiding the ship. After Peyton left, they promoted him. He's going 8-9. I mean, the Saints are, and I thought the Saints should have won that division because everybody else was bad, but Saints did nothing. I don't want to see them. The Bears, I do want to see, especially what's going on. Their decision at quarterback is so interesting. And it did start to look like it was trending where maybe Justin Fields could keep that job. I do think that Packers game, one way or another, was going to influence the decision more than it should have. Again, that's what I want to tell Bears fans. Bears fans, Bears organization, you got to focus on yourself. Everyone that ever gets hired there, every quarterback that they ever draft, every coach they ever sign, within minutes, they're always talking about how we're going to beat the Packers. Just don't worry about the Packers. Stop making them your focus. I'm telling you, as a Packers fan, I'm telling you this. As I'm trying to help you. So the drama around the number one pick and then seeing him come in, and if they do somehow keep Fields, I mean, there's going to be so many stories that'll write itself. So that I think would be the good one. The Broncos one, I'm not even going to watch it. And I might cancel my subscription to Max, which I would just log out then because I'm on my buddy's subscription. So I would just log out and have him change his password. I don't want to ever accidentally see it. I don't want to ever accidentally see Sean Payton knowing he's got cameras on him ever again. I never really liked Sean Payton as a coach. I always thought that he was a little overrated. Then he went on TV, and I was like, I kind of like this guy. I call it the Urban Meyer effect. Never really liked Urban Meyer. Boy, do I love him on Fox. I really do. I like him. And then he went back into coaching, and he sucked again. He was a jerk. Then he goes back to Fox. Now, guess who likes Urban Meyer again? Me. And if Sean Payton ever goes back on TV, maybe I'll like him again. But the way that he acts as a coach, it's just like these guys that are... You don't have to be tough guy coach. Arthur Smith was this way with Atlanta. Get him out of there. These coaches that try to be like small town high school, win the championship every year. Yeah, I teach geography, but I got interns all the time. I'm just going to boss everybody around, and they're going to name the stadium after me like 3 different times. Like, we don't need to do this. Just because you're a head football coach doesn't mean, like, you own football. And I feel like Sean Payton acts that way. Just coach your team. Stop worrying about what happened before. You made Russell Wilson, a robot, sympathetic. How? I don't know. So I don't want to see them. All right, JR Sport Brief Show coming up. Thanks to Samter. Thanks to Kovacs. Please wish Zach Gelb the speediest of recoveries, because I want to take a nap at this time tomorrow and do the late night show. 855-212-4227. I'm Bart Winkler, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in